Hey man, let's talk about something most people never master: the power of walking away without explanation. See, most folks go through life thinking they owe everyone a detailed reason whenever they exit a situation. They feel obligated to justify, to explain, to make sure nobody's feelings get hurt. But what if I told you that the most respected people in the world have mastered the art of the silent exit? What if the ability to leave without a word is actually one of the most powerful moves you can make? Today we're breaking down why walking away speaks louder than any explanation ever could. And listen, this isn't about being cold or distant. This goes deeper than that. This is about self-respect, psychology, and the unspoken language that makes people see you differently. So sit tight, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why sometimes saying nothing says everything. Let's get into it. Sign 1. You recognize when a situation no longer serves you. You ever been in a relationship, a friendship, or even a job where something just feels off? Not because anything dramatic happened, but because deep down, you know it's draining more than it's giving. That's intuition. That's wisdom. Some people ignore these signals. They stay stuck for years, even decades, trying to force something that's clearly not working. Others, they honor that inner voice immediately. They don't need 5 more arguments or 10 more disappointments to confirm what they already know. They trust themselves enough to recognize when something's reached its expiration date. It's in the way they process information. They don't overthink. They don't second guess. They evaluate a situation clearly, and when they see it's time to go, they go. Not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet certainty. People sense this in you, and they react to it. They either respect it or they get uncomfortable, because whether they admit it or not, they wish they had that same clarity. So if you've ever walked away from something that wasn't working, without needing to gather more evidence, my friend, you've got that rare ability to trust your own judgment above all the noise. Sign 2. You understand the power of unexplained absence. Let's be real. Humans value what they can't fully understand or possess. When you leave without explanation, you create a vacuum that the other person has to fill. You become a mystery they can't solve. Some people feel compelled to over-explain their every move. They send paragraph-long texts about why they're ending things. They think closure means spelling everything out. But here's what they don't realize. When you explain too much, you give the other person ammunition. You give them something to argue against, to negotiate with, to manipulate. But when you simply remove yourself, that's final. That's powerful. They're left with questions only they can answer. And here's where it gets interesting. In that space of wondering, people often realize exactly what they did wrong. Your silence forces self-reflection in a way that words never could. If you've ever just disappeared from someone's life and noticed how quickly they figured out exactly what the problem was, you understand this principle perfectly. Silence creates clarity that explanations often muddy. Sign 3. You don't feel the need to defend your decisions. You ever notice how some people make a choice and then spend weeks justifying it to everyone? Meanwhile, others make their move and never mention it again. That's confidence. That's self-assurance. Attractive people don't feel the need to explain their choices. They don't post long social media rants about why they quit their job. They don't call mutual friends to make sure everyone understands their side of a breakup. They move in silence because they answer to themselves, not public opinion. When you defend a decision, you subtly communicate that it might be wrong, that you need external validation to feel secure in your choice. But when you make a move and offer no explanation, you're saying your choices don't require anyone else's approval. And people pick up on this instantly. If you've ever made a major life decision without feeling compelled to justify it to the world, you're operating from a place of genuine self-trust. That's rare. That's magnetic. Sign 4. You understand that actions render explanations unnecessary. This one's subtle, but once you notice it, you'll see it everywhere. Ever watched someone slowly withdraw their energy from a situation instead of announcing their departure? That's mastery. That's sophistication. See, weak communicators need words to deliver a message. Strong communicators let their behavior speak. They don't announce they're losing interest. They simply invest less. They don't declare a friendship is over. They become unavailable. They let their actions deliver the news gradually, clearly, unmistakably. When someone's been consistent for years and suddenly changes their pattern, no explanation is needed. The shift itself is the message. Women are especially tuned into this frequency. They notice when your texts get shorter, when your availability decreases, when your enthusiasm fades. They read these signals perfectly. So if you found yourself naturally pulling back your energy when something feels off, rather than having a big dramatic conversation about it, You're communicating at the highest level. You're letting your actions do the talking. Sign 5. You value your peace more than having the last word. Look, most people can't resist the urge to have the final say. They'll drag out an ending for weeks just to make sure they've been heard, understood, validated. They'll keep a dead situation on life support just to win the argument. But those with true power, they can walk away mid-sentence if necessary. They understand that peace is worth more than being right, worth more than being understood, worth more than closure. They don't need to convince anyone of anything because their value isn't tied to others' perceptions. And here's the truth that most never grasp. When you leave without fighting for the last word, you actually get the last word by default. Your exit becomes the period at the end of the sentence. Your silence becomes the final statement that no one can rebut. If you've ever walked away from an argument you could have won, not because you were losing, but because you valued your peace more than victory, you possess a kind of strength most people never develop. Look, the art of leaving without a word isn't about being cold or avoidant. It's about having such strong self-respect that you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. It's about valuing your energy enough to redirect it without announcement when something's not working. When you start moving with this level of quiet confidence, something shifts. You stop feeling obligated to explain yourself. You stop needing closure from external sources. And suddenly, you're operating at a frequency where your mere presence or absence speaks volumes. So pay attention to these signs, my friend, because once you master the art of the silent exit, you'll never go back to over-explaining again. And that's when everything changes.